The sun was setting over Beverly Hills, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. It was supposed to be a perfect Friday evening, the kind that people in Los Angeles live for. Michael B. Jordan, despite being one of Hollywood's biggest stars, wanted nothing more than to enjoy a quiet dinner with his two closest friends from high school, who were in town to celebrate a birthday. He had chosen La Maison d'Or, the talk of the town that had opened just 3 months ago. The restaurant had quickly become the go-to spot for A-listers and food lovers alike, known for its innovative French cuisine and exclusive atmosphere. Getting a reservation wasn't easy, even for celebrities, but Jordan had managed to secure one 3 weeks in advance. "Man, I've been looking forward to this all week," his friend David said, adjusting his navy blue blazer as they walked down Rodeo Drive. They'd all dressed up for the occasion, with Jordan sporting a perfectly tailored black designer suit that he'd worn to a recent movie premiere. His other friend Anthony wore a crisp white shirt paired with dark trousers, looking every bit as sophisticated as the other diners they'd seen heading into the restaurant. The evening had started perfectly. They'd spent an hour catching up at Jordan's place, reminiscing about their high school basketball games and laughing about old memories. These were the friends who knew him before the fame, before Creed, before Black Panther, before he became a household name. With them, he could just be Michael, the same guy who used to raid their fridges after school and practice movie scenes in their garages. The three friends took their time walking to the restaurant, enjoying the cool California breeze. They passed by groups of tourists, taking photos of the luxury store windows, some doing double takes as they recognized Jordan, but mostly leaving him in peace. It was one of the things he loved about Beverly Hills. People were used to seeing celebrities and generally respected their space. As they approached La Maison d'Or, they could see the warm golden lights spilling onto the sidewalk through its floor-to-ceiling windows. The restaurant's exterior was elegant but understated, with simple gold lettering on the door and a small line of people waiting to enter. The smell of fresh-baked bread and aromatic herbs wafted through the air, making their mouths water. "I heard their truffle pasta is insane," Anthony said, rubbing his hands together in anticipation. "And that chocolate soufflé everyone keeps talking about on Instagram. That's definitely happening tonight." Jordan smiled, watching his friend's excitement. This was what he loved most, being able to share experiences like this with people who meant the world to him. They weren't here for the scene or to be photographed at the hottest new restaurant. They were here to celebrate their friendship and David's birthday, just like they would have done at any regular place back in their hometown. Little did they know that their excitement was about to turn into something entirely different. As they approached the entrance, Jordan noticed something odd about the way the staff at the door were looking at them. The maitre d', a tall man in a perfectly pressed suit, was watching their approach with an expression that didn't match the welcoming smiles he'd been giving to other guests just moments before. The three friends exchanged glances, picking up on the sudden shift in atmosphere. Jordan had been in enough situations to recognize when something wasn't quite right, but he pushed the thought aside, determined to keep the evening positive. After all, this was about celebrating David's birthday and enjoying good food with good friends. Surely, any misunderstanding could be cleared up quickly and professionally. Jordan reached for the door, ready to step into what was supposed to be an amazing evening of fine dining and celebration. The golden handle felt cool under his touch as he pulled it open, unaware that this simple action would set in motion a chain of events that would spark a national conversation about privilege, prejudice, and power in modern America. As Michael B. Jordan and his friends stepped into La Maison d'Or, the warm lighting and soft jazz music created an atmosphere of luxury. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the gentle clink of fine china and wine glasses filled the air. Other diners sat at tables covered in crisp white linens, enjoying their meals and conversations. The maitre d' stood behind his wooden podium, his expression stiff and unwelcoming. When Jordan approached with his signature friendly smile, the man barely looked up from his reservation book. "Good evening," Jordan said warmly, Reservation for 3 under Jordan. The maitre d' slowly flipped through his book, his eyes never quite meeting Jordan's. "I'm sorry, I don't see any reservation under that name," he said, his tone dismissive. David and Anthony exchanged confused looks. They'd all seen the confirmation email just hours ago. "There must be some mistake," Jordan said calmly, pulling out his phone. "I made this reservation 3 weeks ago. I have the confirmation right here." He showed the email to the maitre d', who barely glanced at it before shaking his head. "I'm afraid we're fully booked this evening," the man replied, even as he gestured to a couple who had just walked in behind them, greeting them with a warm smile. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. Your table is ready." The contrast was striking. Jordan watched as the couple was immediately led to a prime table by the window, one of several empty tables clearly visible in the dining room. His friends shifted uncomfortably beside him, the situation becoming painfully clear to everyone within earshot. Other guests in the waiting area began to notice what was happening. A few pulled out their phones, recording the interaction discreetly. The maitre d' seemed to grow more defensive with each passing moment, his excuses becoming increasingly transparent. "Perhaps your attire isn't quite up to our standards," he suggested, despite Jordan and his friends being impeccably dressed in designer suits. Meanwhile, he continued welcoming other guests wearing similar or even more casual clothing. A young hostess behind the podium looked deeply uncomfortable, clearly recognizing Jordan and understanding what was really happening. She tried to catch her supervisor's eye, but he ignored her completely. "Look," Jordan said, keeping his voice steady and professional, "I understand you might be busy, but we have a confirmed reservation, and I can see several empty tables. Could you please explain what the real issue is here?" The maitre d' straightened his tie, his discomfort now evident. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. We have other guests waiting." He gestured to the door, even though there was no line behind them. David stepped forward, his birthday celebration now completely forgotten. "This is ridiculous," he said quietly to Jordan. "Everyone can see what's happening here." The tension in the entrance area was palpable. Other diners had stopped their conversations to watch the scene unfold. A couple at a nearby table whispered to each other, clearly recognizing Jordan and looking appalled at the situation. Anthony placed a steady hand on Jordan's shoulder, a gesture of support they'd shared since their high school days. "Mike, we don't need to stay where we're not wanted," he said, loud enough for others to hear. Jordan took a deep breath, years of experience helping him maintain his composure. He could have made a scene, could have reminded everyone exactly who he was, but he knew this moment was bigger than just one denied dinner reservation. This was about something that happened to people who didn't have his platform every single day. As they turned to leave, phones continued recording, and the whispers grew louder. The maitre d' had already turned his attention to other guests, but his hands shook slightly as he shuffled his papers, perhaps realizing that his actions wouldn't go unnoticed in today's connected world. Walking out into the cool evening air, Jordan pulled out his phone, not to post about what happened or to call his publicist, but to document everything while it was fresh in his mind. He knew this incident would spark a necessary conversation, one that needed to be handled with care and purpose. Outside Le Maison d'Or, a small crowd had gathered. The phones that had been recording inside the restaurant had done their job. Social media was already buzzing with clips of the incident. Jordan stood with his friends on the sidewalk, their planned celebration now overshadowed by what had just happened. "I can't believe this is still happening in 2024, David said, shaking his head. His birthday dinner might have been ruined, but he was more concerned about his friend and the bigger picture this incident represented. A few passers-by had recognized Jordan and were watching the situation unfold, some offering words of support. The restaurant's door swung open, and out came a young woman in a black blazer who introduced herself as the assistant manager. Her face was flushed with embarrassment as she approached them. "Mr. Jordan, please accept our sincerest apologies. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. We would be honored to seat you and your guests right away." Jordan looked at his friends, then back at the assistant manager. The damage was already done. He could see through the window that the maitre d' was still at his podium, now engaged in a heated discussion with other staff members who seemed upset about what had happened. More people had stopped to watch, and someone from a nearby table inside had come out to tell Jordan that they had footage of the whole interaction. "What happened in there wasn't right," the witness said. "Everyone saw how differently you were treated." The assistant manager became increasingly nervous as she realized this situation was spiraling beyond her control. "Please, Mr. Jordan, let us make this right. We can offer you our best table, complimentary champagne." Anthony stepped forward, his voice firm but controlled. "It's not about the table anymore. It's about dignity and respect. You can't just cover this up with free drinks." Inside the restaurant, other diners had begun to leave their tables, some asking for their checks early, refusing to spend their money at an establishment that would treat anyone this way, celebrity or not. Through the windows, they could see the matron being escorted to the back office by someone who appeared to be the owner. Jordan pulled out his phone again, but not to post anything angry or call for revenge. Instead, he started drafting notes about how this moment could be turned into something meaningful. His fingers moved quickly across the screen as he documented ideas for addressing systematic discrimination in high-end establishments. A group of young fans approached cautiously, having recognized him. Instead of asking for selfies, they expressed their support. "We saw what happened," one said. "It's not okay. What can we do to help?" The situation was quickly becoming more than just an incident at a restaurant. People walking by were now stopping to share their own similar experiences, creating an impromptu community discussion right there on the sidewalk of Beverly Hills. David put his hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Some birthday dinner. Huh," he said with a slight smile, trying to lighten the mood. "Maybe we should just grab some burgers and figure out how to turn this into something positive." Jordan looked at his friend gratefully. Even in this frustrating moment, they were thinking about the bigger picture. He could see news vans starting to arrive at the end of the street. Word had spread fast in Los Angeles. The assistant manager was still standing there, looking increasingly uncomfortable as more people gathered. Some were calling out suggestions for other restaurants, while others were already posting reviews online about what they witnessed. "You know what?" Jordan finally said, addressing not just his friends but the small crowd that had gathered. "This isn't just about one restaurant or one incident. This is about making sure nobody has to feel this way when they're just trying to enjoy a night out with friends." The evening had transformed from a simple birthday celebration into something much more significant. As they walked away from La Maison d'Or, Jordan was already thinking about how to use this experience to create real change. His phone buzzed continuously with messages of support from fellow actors, activists, and friends, all asking how they could help turn this unfortunate incident into a movement for positive change. Within hours of the incident at La Maison d'Or, social media exploded with activity. The videos taken by restaurant guests spread like wildfire across every platform. People weren't just sharing the clips, they were sharing their own stories too, creating a powerful wave of solidarity and support. Jordan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in from fellow celebrities, childhood friends, and fans worldwide. A friend from his early acting days called, his voice filled with concern. "I just saw what happened. Are you okay? This is absolutely crazy." Back at Jordan's house, where the evening was supposed to end with birthday cake and laughter, the three friends sat in his living room instead, watching as the incident became the top trending topic online. David scrolled through his phone, reading comments out loud. "Look at this. People are organizing a peaceful protest outside the restaurant tomorrow." The hashtag boycott La Maison d'Or was trending nationwide, but Jordan noticed something interesting. Mixed in with the angry posts were thoughtful discussions about how to create real change in the hospitality industry. Restaurant workers from other high-end establishments began sharing their own behind-the-scenes stories about discriminatory policies they'd witnessed. "Check this out," Anthony said, showing them a post from a well-known food critic who had immediately canceled their upcoming review of La Maison d'Or. Other food writers and critics followed suit, making public statements about reviewing not just the food at restaurants, but their treatment of all guests. Jordan's publicist called, ready to release a strong statement, but Jordan had different ideas. "We need to turn this into something constructive," he told her. "Let's not just call them out, let's call them in. Let's show them how to do better." Television news crews had started setting up outside the restaurant. The local evening news led with the story, showing clips from inside La Maison d'Or. The maitre d's dismissive behavior was clear for everyone to see, and the contrast in how he treated different guests was undeniable. A group chat with Jordan's castmates from recent movies was blowing up with messages of support. Some offered to join him in speaking out, while others shared similar experiences they'd never talked about publicly before. The incident had opened up a floodgate of conversations that needed to happen. Popular food bloggers began digging into La Maison d'Or's history, uncovering other incidents that had gone unreported. Former employees started coming forward with stories about unwritten rules and discriminatory practices they've been asked to follow. "Look at the restaurant's social media," David pointed out. Their latest post was flooded with thousands of comments. People were sharing the video and demanding answers. The restaurant's rating on review sites plummeted as people expressed their disappointment and anger. Jordan watched as his friends coordinated with various civil rights organizations, turning their ruined evening into an opportunity for change. A respected restaurant industry leader sent a message offering to work together on creating new training programs for high-end establishments. The security footage from the restaurant had been leaked online, showing even more clearly how other guests were treated differently. Commentary from body language experts and hospitality professionals began circulating, breaking down exactly how the discrimination had played out. As midnight approached, Jordan's living room had transformed into an informal command center. His friends ordered pizza, a far cry from the fancy French cuisine they planned on, and worked on turning this negative experience into positive action. "You know what's powerful?" Anthony said, looking up from his phone. "It's not just celebrities talking about this anymore. It's everyone. People are sharing stories from restaurants all over the country. This is bigger than just what happened tonight." Looking around at his friends, still in their fancy suits but now sitting cross-legged on his floor with pizza boxes between them, Jordan felt a mix of emotions. The evening hadn't gone as planned, but maybe it had gone exactly as it needed to. The morning after the incident, La Maison d'Or's management rushed to contain the damage. They released a carefully worded statement calling it all a regrettable misunderstanding, but their words only added fuel to the fire. People weren't buying their shallow explanation, especially since the videos clearly showed what had happened. Local news crews camped outside the restaurant, where a small group of peaceful protesters had already gathered. They held signs reading "Stop Discrimination" and "Fine Dining for All." The morning's food delivery trucks had trouble getting through, and several regular customers turned away after seeing the scene. Inside the restaurant's office, panic was setting in. The owner paced back and forth, watching as reservation cancellations poured in. Their phone lines were jammed with calls from angry people. Even their most loyal customers were sending emails expressing their disappointment. A young reporter from a popular food blog had started digging deeper. She uncovered internal emails from the restaurant's management to staff, with troubling instructions about maintaining a certain atmosphere and being selective with reservations. These leaked emails painted a picture of systematic discrimination that went far beyond one bad night. The maitre d' who had denied Jordan entry was nowhere to be seen. Other staff members revealed he had been sent home on indefinite leave, but many felt this was just a band-aid on a much bigger problem. One server, risking their job, spoke anonymously to the press about the unwritten rules they were expected to follow. We were told to be careful about who we seated at window tables, the server explained. They wanted the restaurant to look a certain way from the street. It made many of us uncomfortable, but we needed our jobs. By mid-morning, the restaurant's PR team had called an emergency meeting. They'd brought in crisis management experts who suggested immediate action. Fire the maitre d', issue a real apology, and announce new diversity training. But it felt too little, too late. Other high-end restaurants in the area started distancing themselves from La Maison d'Or. The local restaurant association released a statement condemning discrimination and announcing a review of industry practices. Some restaurants began posting their own inclusive policies, trying to show they were different. The owner's phone buzzed with a message from another celebrity chef, canceling their planned guest appearance in the kitchen next month. More cancellations followed. A charity event, a wedding reception, a corporate dinner. The restaurant's carefully built reputation was crumbling hour by hour. Inside, the remaining staff gathered for an impromptu meeting. Many were in tears, sharing stories of times they'd felt forced to participate in unfair treatment of guests. The head chef, who had built his career on creating beautiful food for everyone to enjoy, looked defeated. Social media detectives had started connecting the dots. They found similar complaints about the restaurant's sister location in New York, suggesting this wasn't an isolated incident, but a company-wide culture problem. Food critics who had previously praised the restaurant's atmosphere now questioned how they had missed the signs. The restaurant's investors were getting nervous. One called an emergency board meeting, worried about their reputation being tarnished by association. The fancy restaurant that had been the talk of the town for its food was now famous for all the wrong reasons. By lunchtime, what started as a PR crisis had evolved into a full industry wake-up call. Other restaurants began examining their own practices. Industry leaders started talking about creating new standards for inclusive fine dining. The conversation had grown beyond one incident into a movement for real change. A food delivery driver, dropping off supplies, shook his head as he looked at the chaos around him. "You know what's crazy?" he said to anyone who would listen. All they had to do was treat everyone with respect. That's free. Instead, look at what it cost them. 3 days after the incident, Michael B. Jordan sat in his home office, surrounded by notes and messages from people who wanted to help make real change. Instead of letting anger guide his response, he was carefully planning how to turn this negative experience into something positive for everyone. His phone lit up with a call from a well-known civil rights lawyer who had been following the story. "We need to do more than just call them out," the lawyer said. "We need to create actual solutions." Jordan nodded, already writing down ideas that had been forming in his mind. That afternoon, Jordan hosted a meeting at his house. Around his dining table sat restaurant owners, civil rights activists, and industry experts. They weren't there to attack La Maison d'Or. They were there to figure out how to prevent this from happening anywhere else. "Look," Jordan said, standing at the head of the table. "We can either make this about one restaurant, or we can use this moment to change the whole industry." The group spent hours discussing training programs, policy changes, and ways to make fine dining more welcoming for everyone. A restaurant consultant shared stories about other establishments that had successfully changed their culture. "It's not just about putting up 'everyone welcome' signs," she explained. "It's about changing hearts and minds from the inside out." Jordan's friend David, whose birthday celebration had started this whole thing, was there too. He brought along years of experience in corporate training. "We need to make this practical," he said. "Give people real tools they can use every day." The meeting produced real results. They outlined a new training program that would help restaurant staff recognize and overcome their hidden biases. More importantly, they created guidelines for restaurants to build truly inclusive environments. Later that evening, Jordan recorded a video message that would go viral for all the right reasons. He didn't yell or blame. Instead, he talked about hope and change. "This isn't about punishment," he said into the camera. It's about progress. It's about making sure everyone can enjoy a nice meal out without fear of discrimination. His phone buzzed with a message from a young waiter at another high-end restaurant. "Thank you for speaking up," the message read. "You're giving voice to things we've seen, but been afraid to talk about." The initiative quickly gained support from other celebrities and industry leaders. A famous chef offered his restaurants as training grounds for the new program. A hotel chain wanted to implement the guidelines across all their dining establishments. Anthony, who had been there that night, helped organize a community meeting where people could share their experiences and suggestions. The stories poured out, from both customers and restaurant workers, creating a powerful picture of how much change was needed. Jordan's publicist was amazed at how he'd handled everything. "You turned what could have been just another angry social media moment into real action," she told him. But Jordan knew it wasn't just him. It was everyone who had stepped up to help. Local news stations started covering the positive developments instead of just the original incident. They interviewed restaurant owners who were eager to implement the new training program. Some had already started making changes in their own establishments. Back at his desk, Jordan looked through the draft of the training materials. They were practical, respectful, and focused on creating positive change. No blame, no shame, just clear guidance on how to make dining out a better experience for everyone. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message from a restaurant group in another city. They wanted to be the first to implement the new program. "This isn't just about fine dining," their message read. "It's about human dignity." 6 months after the incident at La Maison d'Or, the restaurant industry had changed in ways no one expected. What started as one uncomfortable evening had sparked a revolution in how fine dining establishments treated their guests. La Maison d'Or itself had gone through a complete transformation. Under new management, they had become a model for change. The restaurant hired a diverse staff, implemented strict anti-discrimination policies, and hosted community dinners where people from all walks of life could enjoy their famous cuisine. The old maitre d' had been replaced by someone who understood the importance of making every guest feel welcome. The new host, a warm and friendly person, greeted everyone with the same genuine smile. "We want people to remember the food and the service, not how they were treated at the door," they often said. One evening, Jordan received a message that made him smile. A young couple had celebrated their anniversary at La Maison d'Or. "We would have been scared to try this place before," they wrote. "Now it feels like somewhere we truly belong." The training program Jordan helped create had spread across the country. Restaurant owners were surprised to find that becoming more inclusive actually improved their business. Regular customers appreciated the positive changes, and new guests felt comfortable trying fine dining for the first time. David, whose birthday had never really been properly celebrated, finally got his dinner at La Maison d'Or. But this time, as an honored guest. The restaurant had invited him to speak to their staff about his experience and the importance of treating everyone with respect. Other high-end restaurants had followed suit. The fancy dining scene in Beverly Hills looked different now. You could see all kinds of people enjoying expensive meals, dressed up for special occasions, being treated with the respect they deserved. Jordan's friend Anthony had become a regular speaker at restaurant industry events, sharing their story and helping others understand why change was so important. "It's not just about following rules," he would say. "It's about creating places where everyone feels at home." The civil rights organizations that helped develop the training program reported positive feedback. Restaurant workers said they felt better about their jobs now that they didn't have to enforce unfair policies. Customers shared stories about feeling welcome in places they used to avoid. Local food critics had changed too. They now included notes about how welcoming restaurants were, not just how good the food tasted. A new rating system even gave stars for inclusivity alongside those for food and service. One day, Jordan walked past La Maison d'Or and saw something that made him stop. Through the window, he could see people of all backgrounds enjoying their meals. The restaurant was buzzing with energy, laughter, and conversation. Exactly what a great restaurant should be. His phone buzzed with a message from a restaurant owner in another city. "Thank you," it read. "Our business is better than ever since we made these changes. Not just in money, but in the joy we see on people's faces when they walk through our doors." The incident that could have ended with angry posts on social media had instead created lasting change. Restaurant industry magazines were writing about the Jordan effect, how one evening had transformed fine dining culture across America. Even cooking schools had updated their training. Future chefs and restaurant managers now learned about inclusion alongside cooking techniques and wine pairings. The most important ingredient in any restaurant, one instructor would say, is respect for every guest. Looking back, Jordan realized that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best changes. He kept the confirmation email from that original reservation as a reminder, not of the discrimination he faced, but of how people can come together to make things better.